A shout out to the family. And this is going to be my fourth analysis on why black masculinity is so threatening. Okay, this is going to be my fourth analysis. And without any further ado, let's just get right into it.
Men of outgroups to challenge them in gaining social rank, and it's where men of one effect there to be found. I found that when it comes to who makes the best subjects for outgroup threat response research, black men are that perfect organism. That line just kept coming up to me. In evolutionary psychology, there is a tool of intergroup competition that human males use, and it's called the male outgroup target hypothesis. It's where men of one group cooperate to restrict and cripple the ability of the men of outgroups to challenge them in gaining social rank and dominance through the acquisition of material and social resources. Men attempt to damage the men of outgroups in a multitude of ways as a sexual strategy to win intersexual competitions against them. That is what David Buss was explaining on that slide that you saw. Now, if I'm playing the in-group, if I'm the in-group and want to deal with the male outgroup threat, I want to herd those males into areas where I can further obstruct their ability to mess with my tribe. This is accomplished by intergroup discrimination in a society where I have the institutional and structural power. Using institutional power, this discrimination creates what is known as a discriminatory ecology.
And I want to say this. I want to premise this. I want to say that I don't believe that every person thinks like that about outgroups, because not every person is so insecure, and not every group is so insecure to do something like this. Okay, this is for a group that really has an inferiority complex towards another group. So they want to demonize that group, right? In a devious way to make them seem uh, less viable, or actually make them less viable candidates for marriage because they feel like they can't compete, or maybe they actually cannot compete. I don't believe this is something that every single group just does naturally. Okay, a lot of these things that they say men do, and men do uh a lot of the things they say that men do naturally, just all men do this, it's to justify the evil within them. Okay, like there's a video that I showed recently on my tactic, and what I showed was that there was a man, no, there was a cartoon of how they destroyed the earth. And you should know who I mean when I say they destroyed the earth. And it said, man, this is how man destroyed the earth. No, this was not man. The Native Americans cared for the earth. The black people cared for the earth. The other people of color cared for the earth to some extent. Okay, the men that destroyed the planet earth through greed and being insatiable and holding nothing sacred was a particular group of men. So I don't believe that this is just a broad brush that all men do this. All men would engage in eugenics. All men would engage in Planned Parenthood. All men would use bio warfare. All men would do this too, because they're an out group. I don't believe that, and that's not the truth. Okay, and you could look at history to see that every man is not as devious. Yes, men do not want their women dealing with men of out groups, so to speak, men of other nations. They don't want their women to deal with those men. That's natural. But that doesn't mean that they're going to sabotage those men in order to prevent that.
Now, these are two maps of London, one representing areas of deprivation and the other where the black population is concentrated. Now, you don't have to be a cartographer to see the black population fits neatly over those areas of deprivation. So that's right, a large percentage of England's black population exists in those deprived areas. Intergroup institutional discrimination funnels a large percentage of black people into those deprived areas. Now, the topic of discriminatory ecologies is actually a 2-hour lecture, and we don't have time for that today. But what I want to quickly show you is how discrimination creates these harsh ecologies and what's happened to us in them. So you want to put the pattern together through these institutions here, criminal justice, healthcare, housing, employment, and education. If you face discrimination in these areas, it chips away at you, and a higher percentage of your population will end up in those deprived areas than other populations. So blacks experience higher levels of harmful inequality in those institutions. There's all kinds of reports. Certainly here in England, we have bunches of reports on discrimination in criminal justice, education, in the labor market, healthcare, and housing. And there's plenty in America because I had to put a lot of those reports in my book to show how this was happening in the United States.
See, so that's why you were so much better off when you were segregated, because you controlled the hospitals, you controlled your banks, you controlled your what you would call it, your bus stations, the job market, so on and so forth. So there was no discrimination because you were dealing with your own people. Okay, when you gave them that power through Martin Luther King, who they set up, by the way, he was an agent of the international bankers. He was an agent that was set up to bring you into that integration, to want you to integrate, have you crying and screaming to use the same water fountain and all kind of nonsense, right? And that really put you into a terrible position. Well, as he said in one of his last speeches, he said that I feel like I led my people into a burning building, right? Because that's exactly what he did. Okay. And that's why they keep pushing him in your face as some great dude when he wasn't great. He wasn't great for our people. Okay. In reality, he was a sellout. All right.
So now, once high percentages of black populations are herded into these harsh ecologies via structural violence.
Listen, anybody that they put in your face constantly, anyone that they push in your face constantly, it's not for your benefit. It's for their benefit. Just like anything they put on the news constantly, there's an agenda behind it. There's a narrative they're trying to paint behind it.
This pattern emerges. Now, what you're looking at here, the behavior you see listed below, Group B, are the dysfunctional behaviors that deprivation evokes at a higher rate from those that live in it. If successful in forcing large percentages of a population I am not fond of into this ecology, my hands are now clean because the poor behavior of those that live there can be blamed on them. The connection to the use of structural violence my group has used to press them into that ecology will be missed by most. Again, there are black gender war implications here because these ecologies powerfully impact the black gender war that cause black men and women to heavily criticize each other due to how these ecologies can shape the mating structure in ways that lead to high levels of dissatisfaction in our sexual romantic relationships. However, we can now place all kinds of negative labels on people in these ecologies based on the higher level of dysfunctional behavior that takes place in them. I can send militarized police in those areas, for example. Stress them. I can practice excessive use of police violence on their young males who will be behaving in a more violently criminal manner due to the stress such ecologies impose on young men by restricting their status. The strategy I've used to undermine them is hidden. So I win in multiple ways with this strategy.
Right. And they put a lot of pressure on you, and that's really what the meaning of oppression is to press down. Because not only did they lock the black men out of the job market and make it hard for them in that way, they also pushed through the media gangsterism. They promoted gangsterism in the rap music, in the movies, as a way to get ahead, you know, so that the people that you look up to in the society as the ones that made it out of the hood, out of the ghetto or whatever, amongst your people were those that were promoting drug dealing, those that were promoting being pimps and all kind of things, man. You know, and amongst the women, those that were promoting being, you know, H 304s and whatnot, right? So these things, you know, culminate into a perfect storm, and they know exactly what they're doing. They study people. They're masters of psychology. They're very devious. This is why you have to understand everything that they have done and why they're doing what they're doing.
Because a population with higher levels of those dysfunctional behaviors has no hope of defeating my population in intergroup competition for the best education, jobs, housing, healthcare, and racial reputation of good behavior. Look at Group B. Group B can't compete with Group A, not with those behaviors.
Let's read it. Okay. Group A, you got less single parent households, right? So that is a benefit, okay, to have less single parent households, okay, because now you have the father and the mother, and the child can grow up in a healthy, balanced way. Better male guidance, better behavior, right? That comes with not having single households. You have the father in the household, so that's the male guidance, right? It says lower promiscuity, okay, lower promiscuity, right? So you have less women, you know, engaging in whoredom, which causes them not to be marriageable. By the way, all right, you know, men put women in particular categories. It says high time horizon. Okay, high time horizon. Let me look that up. I'm not sure what that means. High time horizon. Let's take a look. Okay, so high time horizon. Excuse me. Bear with me. Bear with me. A high time horizon means a long period of time before an investment goal needs to be reached, typically over 10 years. This longer time frame allows investors to take on more risk because they have more time to recover from market fluctuations, which can lead to higher potential returns through growth and compounding. Okay. Okay. So basically, it's a time frame, a longer time frame for investors. Okay. It says lower testosterone level slash low risk taking. Okay. It says less testosterone suppression, more risk taking. I mean, testosterone is a good thing. You know, I wouldn't say testosterone is a negative. I would have to disagree with this because really men have a very low testosterone compared to what they used to have. Since the 1980s, I believe it went down by like 17-20%, 17 to 20%. So testosterone has been getting much lower. And when testosterone is low as it is now amongst men, you get higher obesity, you get worse health. You don't really think as a man should think, you know. You're weaker, you know. So really more testosterone is very important. And men in general have low testosterone. Us naturally we have higher testosterone than them, but men in general have very very low testosterone. We have much lower testosterone than the men of old, which is better. It's better to have more testosterone. Okay. It says more marriage slash fewer divorces. hmm which feminism is a big plays a big part in that. Feminism was pushed heavily to black people. Feminism was pushed heavily. Okay, that was a major part, and that's one of the things he does not mention because I guess he's nervous about being canceled or whatever, or maybe he didn't take that into account. But feminism is a very a major played a very major part in the dynamic between men and women. Okay, and you see that even going back to the 50s. Okay, and I showed you a video of that, and it's even before that. It was going back to post slavery. All right, they put the woman in a dominant position on purpose. Okay, it says fewer short-term sexual strategies, more short-term sexual strategies, higher education, higher educational attainment, lower educational attainment, lower stress levels, higher stress level, and we're definitely high. We have a high level of cortisol. That's a fact. Okay, that's a fact, and cortisol leads to all kind of problems. Emotional problems, health problems. Okay, go look up the negative effects of cortisol. You know, less violent criminality, right? Which it's a compound of that being a label of respect to be violent, to be a drug dealer, to be a gangster, to go to jail based upon the media and the music and all of that within the culture. It's this synthetic culture that has been given to you on top of being in a position of survival. Okay, being in a fight or flight situation. All right. So I just want to go through this real quick. I don't want to make this one too long, but you can see that, you know, you can see the plot that was against us and that how it has worked very well. And now we're in the time of revealing that plot so that you can see exactly what has been happening. So with that, I'm out.